Ancient Rome was not merely an empire of conquests and marble grandeur. Behind palace walls, Roman emperors indulged in sexual behaviors so depraved they would make modern despots recoil. These weren't just private indulgences. They were deliberate displays of absolute authority that shaped Roman politics, religion, and society for generations. From emperors acting as prostitutes to incestuous unions and human collections, you're about to learn why the imperial bedchambers of Rome were among the most unsettling centers of power in history. What follows comes from documented historical accounts that reveal how sexuality became one of the most potent tools of imperial domination. To understand why Roman rulers acted this way, one must first grasp how Romans perceived sexuality itself. In their culture, sex was never primarily about romance or even pleasure. It was about power. The one who penetrated held dominance. The one penetrated was made subordinate. This was not confined to the bedroom. It formed the foundation of the Roman social order. For emperors, sexual acts became calculated political statements. When Caligula compelled the wives of senators to work in his palace brothel, he wasn't merely indulging lust. He was making it clear that even Rome's most influential men could not shield their families from imperial authority. Each encounter served as a reminder that the emperor's reach extended into the most personal parts of Roman life. Ancient historians such as Suetonius and Tacitus chronicled these actions not as idle gossip, but as evidence of imperial temperament. They understood that a ruler who showed no restraint in private life would show no mercy in public affairs. The emperor's bedroom was a stage where power was performed daily. Senators, foreign envoys, and court officials all knew that either gaining sexual favor with the emperor or avoiding his unwanted attention could decide their political survival. In this way, sexuality and statecraft became inseparably fused. Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, better known as Caligula, began his rule in 37 AD as Rome's golden hope. Beloved by the populace, respected by the Senate, and guarded by the praetorian elite, he seemed destined for greatness. 4 years later, he was assassinated by those very guards, unable to tolerate his excesses any longer. Caligula's descent into sexual infamy began with his sisters. Roman custom strictly forbade incest, yet Caligula openly engaged in relationships with all three, Agrippina, Drusilla, and Livilla. He made no attempt to hide it. At banquets, he placed his sisters in seats of honor normally reserved for his wife, making it clear that blood ties held no sanctity when weighed against imperial will. When Drusilla died in 38 AD, his grief turned morbid. He declared her a goddess and made it a capital crime to laugh, bathe, or dine with family during the mourning period. His most outrageous tribute, however, was transforming the imperial palace into what sources describe as a palace of pleasure, a lavish brothel staffed with the wives and daughters of Rome's aristocracy. Senators were summoned to watch their wives engage with imperial slaves, and Caligula even charged admission, converting humiliation into profit. The infamous tale of Caligula making his horse, Incitatus, a consul carries deeper meaning in this light. Whether fact or satire, Romans saw the sexual undertones. Caligula was mocking the Senate, implying his horse was more worthy than its members and that he could penetrate Rome's political order as easily as their households. Tiberius Claudius Nero, ruling from 14 to 37 AD, spent his final years on the island of Capri, creating what historians regard as a domain of depravity. Suetonius gives a most chilling account, describing elaborate pools where attendants were forced into disturbing acts. Tiberius nicknamed his victims little fishes for what they were made to do in his baths. Beyond the pools, he built chambers adorned with explicit art reflecting his obsessions. Archaeology at Villa Jovis reveals unusually ornate bathing complexes and secluded rooms consistent with these accounts. Capri's remoteness ensured secrecy, and Tiberius used sexual humiliation as political leverage, targeting members of elite families so their shame would keep them loyal. When he died in 37 AD, the empire rejoiced, not realizing his successor, Caligula, would make him seem restrained. Marcus Aurelius Antoninus Augustus, called Elagabalus, became emperor at just 14 in 218 AD and quickly shattered Roman norms on gender, sexuality, and imperial dignity. Some modern scholars suspect Elagabalus may have been transgender, as he openly rejected masculine roles. He appeared in public wearing cosmetics, jewels, and women's attire, preferring feminine names and even offering vast sums to any physician who could give him female genitalia, a crude precursor to gender-affirming surgery. His marriage to the Vestal virgin Aquilia Severa broke one of Rome's most sacred laws. Vestals were sworn to chastity for 30 years, their purity believed to safeguard the empire itself. By wedding her, Elagabalus challenged religious foundations directly. He also prostituted himself in the imperial palace, dressed as a woman, soliciting customers for pay. His romance with charioteer hierarchs became infamous. Elagabalus called him husband and publicly took the submissive role. In Rome, where dominance defined masculinity, an emperor willingly submitting was intolerable. The Praetorian Guard killed him in 222 AD, ending one of the most sexually radical reigns in Roman history. Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, 54 to 68 AD, turned imperial sexuality into public theater. Unlike predecessors who hid their excesses, Nero staged them before audiences. He married the castrated Eusporus in a public ceremony, parading him as a bride. He also wed the freedman Pythagoras in a reversal of roles. Nero played the wife while Pythagoras took the dominant role. Rumors of incest with his mother, Agrippina the Younger, persisted, though the truth remains uncertain. Ultimately, Nero had her killed. His stage performances blended eroticism with art, sometimes simulated, sometimes real, and were mandatory to applaud. Through these displays, he reminded Rome's elite that he controlled not only politics but also morality. Valeria Messalina, wife of Emperor Claudius, also warrants mention. Famous for her sexual escapades, she once challenged the city's top courtesan, Sylla, to see who could bed more men in a night. Messalina won with 25 to Sylla's 23. Disguised with a wig and false name, she often worked incognito in brothels, not for money, but for thrill. Her lovers included senators and foreign leaders, whom she manipulated for political advantage. Her downfall came when she attempted to marry her lover Gaius Silius while still wed to Claudius, a political coup in disguise. Claudius ordered her execution in 48 AD. Roman emperors did not merely commit sexual crimes, they institutionalized them. Sexual violence became a weapon of conquest, humiliation, and entertainment. Captives were enslaved, women and men violated, and boys castrated for court service. Roman law denied slaves any protection from such abuse, turning human bodies into imperial currency. Religion intertwined with sexuality in bizarre rituals. The cult of Priapus involved phallic worship, sexual performances, and ritual prostitution. Elagabalus fused Syrian sun god worship with sexual acts as public religious ceremonies. Bacchanalian rites evolved into imperial orgies under certain emperors. Sacred prostitution flourished in temples to Venus and Cybele, with emperors participating as acts of piety or dominance. By modern standards, these acts are shocking, but they reveal a truth about Roman rule. Sexuality was political, and controlling it meant controlling society. The emperors knew this, and used sex, violence, and spectacle to maintain their supremacy over the greatest empire of the ancient world.